And good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining me this evening on Meet the Candidates. I, of course, am your host, Camila Turner, and my guest tonight is Councilman J.B. Smiley Jr., Esquire. Thank you for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm looking forward to it. I haven't
Yes.
done one. People haven't been inviting me out as much now. So
Well, you're running unopposed. So I'd like to think that that means that you've been doing such an excellent job that nobody thought that you needed opposition.
or they forgot about me. So
So you are on the city council. Now, your district is Super District 8, Position 1. Now, tell us what that encompasses. Where is that in the city?
the easiest way for me to break it down to people. So starting from Whitehaven to Fraser, everything in between. So you have downtown, you have Mitchell Heights, you have uptown, you have all of North Memphis. But as far as east is Riverdale. So you have Hickory Hill, a lot of Southeast Memphis, Parkway Village. You have essentially cut the city in half, eastern and western halves. I represent the western half of the city. Another way I tell people, every black neighborhood in the city except for Binghamton.
Oh, okay. So that's about how many people?
315,000.
Okay, so that's about half of the city, or more than half of the city, actually.
Yeah, more than half, slightly more than half of the city. City is about 630-ish, depending on if you believe the census or not. I represent half the city, the western half of the city.
Wow. So, tell us some of your accomplishments, some of the things that you are proud of that you've accomplished since you've been on the city council.
Well, I think my favorite thing, I spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to get people involved in the political process. I believe government works best when there's active participation from the folks who live in the city. So one of the things that I started was something called the Memphis Academy of Civic Engagement. And I think it's started out twice a year, and now it's almost quarterly. We bring about 30 to 35 community members in the city and get them involved. They learn 7 weeks of different things in the city. Whether it's one of the courses is called Make Sense, which is you learning everything about budgeting. It's led by former council member, former city director, Tawan Stout Mitchell. She has an amazing deputy who's helped leading the course, Ms. Himes, and they do a really good job. They teach them budgeting. They learn about how the inner workings of the police department works, from parks to quasi governmental agencies. And my ultimate goal with the program is to not only do we increase knowledge of the folks who live in the community, but also groom people, assuming they want to serve in leadership roles within the city, whether they're going to seek office, whether they're going to lead their local CDC, but they will be more informed so they can be better citizens in the community. So Memphis Academy of Civic Engagement is my baby. And, we're treating it like a school. You apply to get in. There's a board of admissions.
Okay. So if somebody wants to apply, how do they apply?
So every quarter when the class is over, we post the applications are live. People go to the city council website. You can go to the city council website now. It say closed, but every quarter is open and they're applying. I think right now, yesterday was the second class of this cohort. So I'm extremely proud of the Memphis Academy of Civic Engagement because some of the folks who are running from office been through the program. So I'm excited about that. One of the things that I'm also excited about, I'm a lawyer by trade, and when I would go to court, I would see a lot of individuals, going through the eviction process. And what I notice is in some of the underserved communities, you'll have a lot of eviction setouts, and some of the communities will be extremely blighted due to the eviction setout. So I was able to amend the eviction setout ordinance so that it doesn't, work some, but, you still got to figure out enforcement. But right now it's illegal to, when you evict someone, to put the things of their property on public thoroughfares. And you see a lot of that in communities like North Memphis, Fraser, and parts of South Memphis. So we're trying to figure out how we can beautify this city and eliminate a lot of the blight that we're seeing in the community. Another thing that I'm proud of is...
Well, I want to ask you a few more questions about that. So right now, if someone gets evicted, they go
Mhm.
to court. We call it a forcible entry and detainer,
FED, absolutely.
FED. Um, Landlords or owners of property are allowed to physically take the things out of the home
Mhm.
if they don't move it, and to set it on the street, essentially. So your ordinance
They
is
were
saying,
allowed to do
okay, that's what I want to
that.
know. What's the difference now? You're saying,
Also, essentially, what was transpiring, so when you go through the eviction process, you get 10 days after the date the judge enters a judgment to move your things. You don't, the landlord or property management company can go in and file a writ of possession. That means it gives them the right to go in and remove your things. So when they go in and move your things, prior to the ordinance being amended, they can take your things, they can just sit it on the street. Now,
mhm,
with the ordinance amended, the way it's supposed to work is they're no longer sitting on the public thoroughfares. They're no longer sitting in the streets. They're no longer sitting on the sidewalks. The goal is to essentially kind of force the landlord's hand, which will require them to move the things into storage facilities or elsewhere, or leave it into the property until the person can come back and get the things that they want. What's happening is now, the landlords who are trying to comply with the statute, what they're doing is they're sitting in front of the house that they're attempting to rent again, and they don't leave it there long. So that's what happens in communities when people are trying to comply with the ordinance. But right now, we're still having some issues with enforceability. But the goal is to decrease the type of blight, the type of clutter that we're seeing in the streets after we see FED actions taking place.
okay,
And then
and
those
you,
are just two things. One of the things that I'm gonna be really proud of once we can officially announce it, but I kind of talk a little bit about here. There's a we took I set aside certain money for a particular project. It was about $1 million for a particular project. We reached back into that bucket of money and we allocated, I think, slightly less, like $950,000 to the BBA, the Black Business Association, and
okay,
in the next couple of weeks, once they iron out a few kinks, they're going to be announcing a new program in which other small businesses in the community are able to apply for grants, and gives them the ability to scale up. And I think what we a lot of times government spends a lot of time supporting big business. They forget that small businesses are the backbones of our community. And we have to find out ways to support those businesses so they have the resources to scale up and hire within our community. And I think I'm proud of that. I'm also proud, initially that the council was taken during COVID. We talk about ARPA funding, and the federal dollars that was poured into community during COVID-19. What you saw is governments across the country using a lot of those dollars to supplement their budget. But what I wanted to do, and Councilman Jones wanted to do as well, is trying to figure out how we can directly help people. So I think we're one of the only cities across the country to give dollars directly to people. So if you were a barber during COVID-19, you were able to apply and you were able to go pick up a check. If you're in the hospitality industry during COVID-19, you were able to apply. You're able to go pick up a check, not from Joe Biden, not from any of the presidents, but check directly from the city of Memphis. Another thing that we did recently, there's a lot of things we did that were good. There's some things that we could improve on. I'm going to stop talking after this one because I think this is really important. Recently, I met with Habitat for Humanity, which they do affordable housing, and Rashawn Austin does affordable housing at Works Inc. We took $10 million out of unassigned fund balance, which is money that's just sitting there that we're not using. It's just so that we can look good on paper.
so
And we
wait,
put,
Memphis just had 10 million random dollars sitting
we
around.
have more. We have more. We have, and it's a good thing. We have money sitting in an unassigned fund balance fund so that we can have a good credit rating, a good score rating, right? Good bond ratings. We took it and we put it in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which allows entities like Works Inc., entities like United Housing, entities like not United, entities like Habitat for Humanity to apply for affordable housing dollars so that they can build affordable housing in our community. One of the things that we lack in the city of Memphis is affordable housing. So we have to find ways to dedicate funding to affordable housing so that folks who are living at or below the poverty line, which is a lot of people in the city of Memphis, have ways to find good, clean, and safe housing. And I think we've been able to do that with some of the more recent actions by the council. But there's a lot of other things I don't want to talk
No,
all day about the
that's
different
good. That's
council.
good. I wanted to talk to you about the youth in our city.
Ooh.
We know that there are a certain segment of youth, certainly not all of them, that have been engaged in some delinquent activity lately. I know that reading your website, you were a Cub Scout and
I
a
did a
Boy
lot of stuff.
Scout, and you were involved in sports, basketball. So, as a city council person, what do you see as being important to help our youth stay on the right track?
Well, one of the things that I often talk about is although the city of Memphis is not directly involved in education, that's on the county side, we have to find ways to, give our young people things that they want to do and also give them a way to remove their idle mind and all those the idle time that they have. One of the things that we did recently is we invested $2 million extra dollars in the parks program. City of Parks Division. The reason we did that is because the council understood that, with the rise in juvenile crime, the rise in juvenile car thefts, the rise of the frequency of individuals frequenting in and out of juvenile court, we needed to do more. And one of the marching orders, so to speak, that we gave the Parks Division as we increased their budget by $2 million is create programs for our young people to participate in going forward. And they have something called Play Your Part, which is different events in the park, community centers in different neighborhoods for young people to participate in. They implemented a pilot program for a youth basketball program. They're trying to find creative ways to get people involved. And more recently, I think this was just last council meeting, Councilwoman Robinson introduced, and many council members signed on to it, an additional $2 million for the city administration to create a pilot program. Because pilot programs is programs that we don't know if they're going to work, but we're trying to see if they will. To give to allow churches and other nonprofits within certain communities to access resources so they can create programs to get some of the young people in their community involved. I tell people all the time, we don't know everything. We're not omnipotent or all knowing, omniscient or anything. We're just people trying to figure out how to make things work. And if someone in the community knows how to do it better, we're trying to give them the resources that they need so they can, bring in young people. Because the goal is to bring young people in, but also do it in a way that they're receiving and receptive in. Sometimes they're more receptive to people that they already know, as opposed to someone they see on TV just talking about something they may or may not be too concerned with.
Well, how can people who may not be able to go to every city council meeting, may not be able to run for office, but how can people be more involved in what's going on in the city of Memphis?
Well, I mean, I was going to say something, but it's not necessarily true for all council members or elected officials. I engage people every day on social media. Like, I talk about, whether it's in my DMs, whether I'm engaged in, just in a public forum. I talk, people about politics, what's going on with government all the time. I think one thing that the elected officials should do more of, we should have more town halls and try to figure out how we can go out and meet people where they are. I don't think we do that enough. Another thing we can do is when we're passing legislation or creating policy that governs the city, we go out to the community and actually get real feedback as opposed to just talking to the people in our sphere of influence. I think we need to do a better job of that. But if you can't, if you're trying to figure out how you can just watch what's transpiring, city council meetings are public. You can come, if you can't attend in person, you can go to the City of Memphis website and watch it online. You can listen to it. There's so many different ways you can figure out what's happening, what's happening in the city of Memphis. And I will also encourage everybody to go to the city council website and reach out to your elected officials. Ask for a sit down meeting. I hope there would be inclined to meet with their constituents. But reach out to them, and if they're not responsive, you know what to do.
Yeah. Well, election day is October 5th. Early voting is tomorrow. Some of the numbers that I've seen seem kind of low. Hopefully, more people are going to vote on election day and tomorrow. But how important is this election?
Oh, I think you're talking about an election that will, if it goes the wrong way, I just put it that way. Um, you're talking about, we have an opportunity to stay stagnant. I mean, continue to do the same thing. We have an opportunity to take a step back, or we have an opportunity to, rise to new heights. And I think this election will determine where the city of Memphis wants to be. I think we spend too much time singly focused on one issue as opposed to think about how we move our city forward in a direction that will be beneficial to everyone who calls it home. And I tell people this all the time: the more people who stay at home, the less likely we get the results that we truly desire. We can talk about it every single day. We can tweet about crime. We can talk about the lack of opportunity. We can talk about the intentional investment in downtown and the intentional disinvestment in some of the impoverished communities. But talking about it is cheap. Like if you truly want to see a change, you got to go to the polls and elect someone who, I would say other words, but I'm not. I'm gonna act like my mom's watching. Elect people who actually care about folks. And I think that's our position. You have to be intentional about the change you want to see, and you can't get that change just tweeting and talking about it on social media. I saw some particular numbers, and I'm gonna look at it because I don't want to misquote it. When we were at about the 20,000 vote number, we're about double that now. I'm gonna read a couple numbers because I think it's important for people to understand context. 20,000 votes cast, slightly under 20,000 votes cast. At this point in time, under 35, only 845 votes. So
Wow.
that makes up 4.6%. At this point in time, 35 to 44, my age category, 1,300 votes. 45 to 54, 2,000 votes. Now, here where it changes: 55 to 64, 3,646 votes. And then age 65 and plus, 10,348 votes. So at this point in time, 56.7% of the votes cast belong to people over 65 plus. And now let's think about the makeup of the city. The city is made up of a majority of individuals between the ages of 55 and below. We make up less of the voting, make up significantly less of those individuals casting our votes. If we truly want to see a different city, this is not the way to do it. We have to go vote, and we have to significantly increase this number.
Well, tell us why you initially decided to run for city council and then why you decided to run for reelection.
Oh, I lost my mind. No, but seriously, having the opportunity to go. I think you stated previously, I had an opportunity to play basketball. Just having an opportunity to travel all across, this country, living in a lot of different places, having the opportunity to play a little bit in Mexico, got to see a lot of different things. And when I moved back home, I think in 2017, I didn't recognize the community that I spent the summers of my childhood in, particularly 38126, which is the poor zip code in the state of Tennessee at the
Oh,
time. I
wow.
think it still is. And
And what
38106 is
neighborhood is
knocking on the
it?
door too.
38126. What
Yeah.
neighborhood is that?
You're talking about, Soulsville area. You're talking
Okay.
about by La Rose Elementary,
Mhm.
BTW, though that area, where
Mhm.
Metro Shopping Center is as well.
Okay.
So I came back home, and there was a car wash that my father used to go to all the time. And next door to the car wash was where the older folks would get their shoes shined. And when I was young, the kids would go out there and play. But when I came back home, the car wash was blighted, the grass was high, the shoe shine shop was falling apart. And I was like, what's happening here? Like, people forgot about this community. And it kind of pissed me off. I'm gonna be honest with you, it pissed me off. And I started asking questions. Then I picked up the commercial appeals, and I think this would ultimately push me over the edge. So when I picked up the commercial appeals, started reading, there was a study that talked about people who live in 38106 and 38126 that had a life expectancy of 13 years fewer than the wealthier people who lived in Carryville. And I was wondering, like, why people die? Like, literally, people were
Right.
dying. And I just knew there was gonna be crime. Nope, wasn't the reason. I just knew it was gonna be, some other reason that's tied to crime. The long story short, it was directly related to opportunities. It was directly related to lack of full service grocery stores. And in my mind, I was like, well, I don't know how to do anything. But the only folks who I knew had some say in how things work were elected officials. And I said, okay, you know what? They're not doing anything. I'm not even sure they have the expertise to figure out how to get it done. Why not me? and that's how I got in office, and haven't been able to shut up since.
Well, thank you so much. Of course, election day is October the 5th. Early voting ends tomorrow, September the 30th, and JB Smiley is running unopposed. So don't write
Absolutely.
in anybody.
Tell a friend to tell 10 that in 2023 we're gonna vote JB Smiley in.
Hey. So any parting words for our listeners?
Absolutely. Go vote. Like whatever you imagine the city being in the next 4 years, go vote. But not only go vote, use your voice. Show up to council meetings. Show up to the mayor's office. Show up to my office and tell us what your vision is for the city, and we should do our best to bend to the will of the people. I mean, this is your city to take a part in it.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. Go vote. Thank you so much for joining me. We're here. I know it's a whole lot of things that you can be doing on a Friday evening.
Absolutely, it's all
Uh,
good.
all right. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. And until next time, have a great evening and a good weekend. Good night.